You just blew my mind.
You know who Maxwell McCombs and Donald Shaw is, right? Oh, you don't? Anyways, this theory was first introduced by McCombs and Shaw as a function of media back in 1972. The journalism professors considered the Watergate scandal of 1972 as the perfect example of the agenda-setting function of mass media. You see, the Watergate scandal was very familiar to half of the country, then not too much longer, even more of America became aware of this. The media helped make the Watergate scandal the #1 topic that all of America knew about because of the constant reporting of the story and showing beginning to end coverage of Senate hearings. So we just went through a pretty squirrely presidential election. Not only was it something that is very unforgettable, but it is also a great example of the agenda-setting theory. For months and months, we had to go through watching the political campaign on TV, through the news, and through commercials. The presidential election was the most talked about topic and was covered more than any other story. But also, during that campaign, the media continually raised questions and issues or simply showed an interest in a certain issue or political candidate. A topic that receives more media coverage will become more salient, and the more attention from audience the topic will receive. A recent event that calls the theory into question would be a story that didn't make very much headline back in September, but it should have. In those final weeks of September and leading into October, Hurricane Maria ripped and tore through Puerto Rico and then through all of Florida to create another devastating tragedy that was going on in the United States. But for a while, it wasn't seen anywhere. The agenda-setting theory takes place in this situation because the media gave Hurricane Maria more media attention and left the wildfires in California with barely any. In USA Today's article, "It's Hard to See Hurricane Maria Through All This Smoke," states that hurricanes receive more attention because hurricanes receive special federal disaster relief from numerous assistance programs covered in what is known as the Federal Emergency Management Agency's disaster policies. But with wildfires, no such federal program exists beyond the U.S. Forest Service's budget.
According to the textbook titled A First Look at Communication Theory, the agenda-setting hypothesis is defined by saying the mass media has the ability to transfer the salience of issues on their news agenda to the public agenda. It can be simplified and only focus on the cause and effect relationship during election campaigns. The theory suggests that there is a cause and effect relationship between media content and voter perception. In today's world, we are definitely impacted by what the media is saying.
You serious?
But is our reaction necessarily what the media is intending? A lot of the public experience what is known as a selective exposure theory, meaning they tend to favor information that reinforces their current beliefs. People will purposefully avoid information so they won't experience cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, attitude, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude change. For example, a conservative or liberal might watch a specific news channel in order to reinforce their attitudes and beliefs on certain issues. This is where a problem with the agenda-setting theory occurs. Because the majority of people avoid specific media so they don't experience cognitive dissonance, the media isn't able to transfer the salience of issues from the media agenda to the public agenda. Another way in which the agenda setting is flawed would be the fact that we are basing their research on correlation. Correlation is not causation. Just because two different things correlate doesn't necessarily mean they have a cause and effect relationship. In the agenda setting theory, it specifically talks about the correlation between voter perception and media content. It's believed that the media content influence voter perception, but what if the person taking in the media isn't interested in politics and randomly selects a candidate because they simply don't care? The correlation between the two cannot be assumed as causation.
After researching the agenda setting theory, we feel that this topic can be very controversial and dependent based on each person's personal beliefs. The media has a way to sway our beliefs and think about what is more important when really there could be other things going on in the world that could be even more important than the stories they choose to broadcast. Living in a world where there are multiple things occurring at once, it is hard to determine what is more important than the other, but it needs to be done. While Hurricane Harvey was one that truly affected not only our country but many lives, houses, and families, we were constantly updated on the situation. But how about the families in California? They were being affected by fires and we did not know as much as we should have. A way to change this is to maintain a balance between news stories. We believe that journalists and broadcast stations should be warranted a certain amount of time per story per day. For example, if a news station is talking about Hurricane Harvey, they should only be allowed to broadcast information regarding that specific situation for 2 hours a day. This would allow more time for other newsworthy events to get broadcasted and allow the people watching to be informed. All in all, the agenda setting theory predicts what people's beliefs and outcomes of a situation is going to be. As this is important to know what the world thinks and what their views are, changing the media perspective would allow for the outcomes to be more consistent and valid.